Good evening, everybody. Welcome to BS session number 77. I pulled a boob and labeled it number 76 when we put the show out. No matter. And I also didn't look at the intro before I agreed to read it, but here goes. I see a gun show every time I step in front of a mirror. But that's not what you're here for, thankfully. So, cue up the intro.
But some of these bullets, as you saw, have an incendiary device on the tip of it, which is a heat-seeking device.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome to your weekly dose of BS, the Holistically Speaking podcast.
I think I like it better when I write the intros and you read them.
I gotta say, it's well done. Well done.
Oh, a wise guy, eh?
What the hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
shit.
we're waiting for one more to join us, but we're not.
Then
Waiting,
plus one.
Yeah, we're not waiting that long because we're live now. So he'll join us when he joins us. But
Yeah.
what's going on, Derek? What's going on, Rooster?
You know, just
Shit and stuff.
working away.
Away.
Wow, riveting.
You're home, I see, though, now.
I'm actually not. I am in my hotel in Yellowknife, so
Oh,
I'm technically working. So I'm working away, and I won't be back until April 24th. And right after that, when I get back, a little bit of prep, and then Sapril will be happening
Oh,
the 2 day.
right.
So
Do
you'll
you get
see
to
Mike
shoot
and
when
I
you're up
there.
north?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Excellent.
Yes.
I finally got back into my gun room here this week. I got home from work Tuesday evening, and I decided that the world can wait. So I've been spending more time here than I have in months and months, and getting ready to bed a couple of rifles and loading some ammunition. I got this fancy sucker right here
Ooh,
that
look at that.
that I just took delivery of here the other day, and looking forward to putting that on the 223 Ackley. I'm excited about that. Yeah, I got my scale turned on. Haven't used it yet though. It's been on for 3 days.
Step one is turn on the power.
Right.
It's acclimatizing.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right. Did you turn it on, ma'am?
Hmm.
So Spud and Bending are already arguing over who was first, but Jens actually was first.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Ryan Piper's like, yeah, hey guys.
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, fifth. Don't care.
That's
So
actually
we-
interesting
Yeah.
because I've been I brought up a bunch of steel targets with me and my rifle, and I've talked to some kind of fellow coworkers here,
Mhm.
and I've been setting up informal mini PRS practice sessions. I have one booked for tomorrow and another for Sunday. So I'm
Do you have one
slowly-
stage where you shoot off an Inukshuk?
not quite.
Ah,
I did bring my snowshoes, though, however, to set up targets on the range, because that
No,
is actually an important part of being able to set
I
up
bet.
targets on this range. Is the
So you
snowshoes?
are
You
shooting
didn't get
at a
stuck
range,
going
it's
in
not
the
like
range
private
yet?
land.
Yeah, no, I'm at the Yellowknife range. It's actually quite a nice range, so they got
Nice.
a fairly nice setup here. So, props to them.
Very cool.
Mm.
So
Mending
where-
says, I'm surprised scopes aren't illegal in Canada yet. Just wait.
Yeah, thanks, Bending. Someone should check their messages and make sure that our fourth isn't like messaging and saying, "Hey, your link doesn't work."
I have not seen anything quite yet.
Okay, so we'll give
I'll
them
send a
some time.
message.
Just grabbing snacks.
Why don't we? Yeah, I wish I had grabbed some snacks. I'm starving. Why don't we pay some bills?
Let's do that.
Alrighty then, folks. Our show is brought to you tonight by EM Precision Rifles in Leduc, Alberta, building Canada's finest precision rifles. Commission a build today at emprifles.ca.
And also Bolt Action Coffee, bringing specialty coffee to the precision shooting world. Order coffee and merchandise at boltactioncoffee.com.
Call sign 66, Canada's best rifle training. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Book a course now at callsign66.ca.
And Odell Engineering. Pick up a Canuck shotgun or a Bergera rifle from your local distributor and tell them Phil sent you. Look them up at odellengineeringltd.com.
Apex Optics. When you buy Apex, precision comes standard. Check out all the fine competition rifle scopes and binoculars at apexoptics.co.
Ribstone Gunsmithing. Craftsmanship done right. Contact Oscar at ribstonegunsmithing.ca and breathe life back into any firearm.
And the Shooting Edge in Calgary, Alberta, home of the Sterling Arms R18. An indoor range, training courses, a new 6-lane axe throwing bay, and the One Shot, One Spill Cafe. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and on their website at theshootingedge.com.
And finally, BS session number 77 is brought to you by March Scopes Canada. The Dion Optical Design line of rifle scopes has a scope for all your hunting and shooting needs. Find Doug and Nisa at marchscopes.ca. I just about said apexoptics.co. Again.
Oh. Apparently my
That's
microphone is quiet.
marchscopes.ca. Yeah, you're a little bit quiet.
Give me a minute.
There's Mike right there. Clean shaven Mike. We're going to let him in. Let him in. Let him in. Let him in. Derek, I said let him in.
Okay, fine.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Roger that.
I was scrambling to find headphones.
What's okay, I got to ask, is the beard coming back?
The mustache might come back because apparently H2S is a thing on some job sites, and
What is
Yeah.
H2S?
Make sure it's not past the corners of your mouth. That's
No.
Hydrogen sulfide gas.
Okay, I was going to say, like, I know what H2SO4 is.
Mm.
I didn't know. All right.
close.
I don't know what that has to do with facial hair, though.
You'll only get one whiff.
Yeah, you have to be able to mask up in the event that there is a leak and have a proper seal. So
See, I've never done any sort of real work for a living, so I don't know any of these things.
You know what? I would say that what you do for a living benefits humanity a lot. You know, teaching
very
people
kind
to
of
punch
you,
other
but-
people in the mouth is an
Yeah.
essential. You know, despite what anybody told you through COVID, it is an essential service, I believe.
Yeah, but I don't deal with a lot of sulfuric gas
Well, leave that to
that's
us.
fair.
or any other type of gas for that matter.
You may have to deal with some mad BO at times, and
Oh, dude,
that can be nasty.
that can be
man.
especially pungent.
Yeah.
I have, you know when somebody has BO bad enough and long enough that it no longer smells like BO, they actually start smelling like a corpse.
Can't say I've had that experience.
Yeah.
I've come
I have
close, I suppose, but really, that's
on more than one occasion. I have had it. Man, you have no idea how bad body odor can get.
wow.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Mhm.
Let's
I'll
move
take
on.
your
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
That's gross.
hmm
Is my mic better, by the way?
It is.
That's so strange. Usually I'm the loud one.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see Yen's verdict on that one,
On which one?
on
quiet?
your microphone.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you quite well.
Okay. He'll say something. if
Are you
it's-
guys
if
seeing
it's
what Dave Collins has put into the chat?
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it.
Seems to be a licensing and registration regimen going on in the Cali Congress. Yearly re-registration required. $1,000 fine for each firearm not renewed. I wonder if he could expand on that, or maybe one of you guys know a little bit more about this. Is there registration of all firearms required in California already?
Well, there's like a master list of what's only allowed to be sold in California. Like you have to make a California list to even be sold in the state. So they pretty much already know.
But is the licensing and registration on the individual side, or is it on like retailer side, or?
It's like if you're Smith and Wesson and you bring out something that doesn't meet their requirements, you can't sell it in California.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
thought I'd
Yeah.
read
Mhm.
something about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
This,
that's
this is
typical
basically like
California.
what we do, except worse.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, Bending is saying California is a registry state. We're probably not thinking about
Mhm.
it all that much because,
Yeah, we got our own fucking problem.
yeah, well, we register so much already ourselves, we probably don't even think about it.
I'm sure that the criminals read through
Hmm.
the laws and comply with the requirements. So
Well,
I'm sure
certainly
it's
they'll
effective.
abide by them.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Gavin Newsom,
Yeah.
for everything. Yeah, wonderful.
Bunch of
$1,000
jerks.
fine for not renewing yearly. That's. I wonder, is there? Look up SB 1160. Okay. I wonder if there's a fee for registering when you do re-register every year. That would be the next thing. I wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, it looks like
California has a. Go ahead, Chris.
it's a bill. Yeah, it's a bill.
Mhm.
California legislature introduced by Senator Portantino on February 14th,
Dino.
2024. I'll bet you he's a Republican, right?
Absolutely.
There's
So-
also the Zombie Guns Act that they're bringing in too.
Oh
The
yes,
Zombie
yeah,
Guns
that's
Act,
a
what's
real
that?
thing. I thought that was parody to begin with,
No,
but yeah, they're
What is
calling it zombie guns now.
because
Well, say-
we're working our way down the horror story villains. Now we had Ghost Gun. Now we're on Zombie Gun.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
elaborate here. What
It's like
what are they
the way-
terming a zombie gun?
Yeah.
The
So
way I
actually-
understand it is, like you can have a deactivated firearm,
Mm.
but you can still buy parts for that deactivated firearm. So essentially bringing it back to life.
Well, that would be a resurrected gun, not a zombie gun.
Hmm.
Now you're talking logic. Logic does not belong in DC or any other area
Fucking
that has
Californians
government.
don't even know the difference between someone who's resurrected and the undead.
It's not just California. It is. It's national, isn't it? They were
Yeah,
talking-
it's a federal bill.
Really?
Yeah.
Basically, because you can't buy a machine gun, but you can buy a cut up machine gun that's been cut exactly how the ATF says to cut it up. And if you're licensed, like Brandon Herrera, he did a great video on it, you can
Yeah.
reactivate it
Mhm.
and use
Right.
the parts kit to Frankenstein on an American receiver.
Speaking of Brandon Herrera, did you guys notice that he didn't lose?
It's going to a
governor
runoff.
race in Texas.
Hmm.
Oh, excellent.
He got less votes, but apparently he got enough votes that they got to go to another round.
So it was originally 5 candidates for that slot, and now because they're going to a runoff, it's him and that Tony gentleman.
Yeah, that Tony Gonzalez, I think it is.
Yep.
Gonzalez. Tony dipshit. He's. I don't
The
know.
thing I respect about it is he doesn't want the job. He's just doing it because someone has to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Hey.
Well, he's trying to stimulate change, right? I mean, that's really the only way to do it. We should probably. Well, we don't have the same types of celebrities up here that they have down there, but
I mean, he's going to directly change the government. We can only change the government by voting, allegedly. But if you get involved in government, it's a lot more direct.
you have to get the votes then.
Hmm.
Well, you have to wait for someone to retire, and then you got to do it, and then you got to work your way up there, and then you got to make change. Like it's a 30-year arc for us to do it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. No
that's
shit.
not right.
Hey.
and then convince 300 other people that you have a good idea.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to be prime minister, you have to learn French or English.
Oh, for sure.
Which
Would
is
they accept
a little bit messed up.
Jean Chrétien didn't learn English, and he was prime minister.
That's right. Oh, but there's the
He did
there's the
speak
class
fist,
divide there.
though, and that's a
The
universal
double standard.
language right there.
Right.
He spoke pissed. Is that what you said?
Fist.
I speak fist. Maybe I can be
Yes.
prime minister.
Yeah.
Fist and finger.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I
No,
can definitely punch hecklers. That would be great.
You know
What
that,
was that?
I-
Was that BC or was it Chrétien or Pierre Elliott Trudeau that gave the finger out the window of the train?
That was
that going
Trudeau.
through
that was Pierre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He was famous for the middle finger and for saying fuddle duddle in Parliament.
And driving
fair.
around Montreal in a Nazi uniform.
Yeah. Well, I
But
guess he's famous for
I
a
don't
few
read history
things.
books.
And chumming around with his son's future father.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Oh
Fidel.
no, he definitely chumming around. Oh, the father thing is alleged.
Yeah.
The chumming around thing is pretty public. Man, we got Todd joining us tonight. I don't think Todd's joined us in a
Yar,
while,
he
has he?
says. Hey Todd, send us a picture of your finger.
Yeah. What?
So
How
we
did
can put
that
it up on the
happen?
screen.
It looked when I saw that picture. So he probably won't send it, but he's got a cut on the pad of his index finger that looks like he was bitten
Right.
by a midget.
Well, it's a
in the
very
shape of a
Canadian
mouth.
story.
Okay.
He was ice fishing and he
Yeah.
was actually successful. And he explained to me that he wasn't really paying attention and he was tired and
That's how all
whatever
these
else,
stories start.
probably thinking about going home and visiting with his beautiful wife, and he filleting fish, and the knife got away from him.
And cut a mouth shape?
I don't ask me to.
That's a
Yeah.
hell of a cut though. Like
It was an angry midget. It wasn't just any midget. It was an angry midget.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize. I stand corrected.
Some of them are
A little
short
Knife he
tempered.
cut himself with.
Some midgets are more dangerous than others. That's
This is
the
true.
lesson that Todd learned that day.
Oh, so true.
So hey, we're like 20 minutes into the show. We haven't even mentioned what our topic is tonight, let alone talked
Excellent
about it.
start so far.
No.
Yes,
Why don't we
yes.
start with that? So we're kind of winding down a little bit, I think, with gun show season, at least until September.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of gun shows on lately. I think between the four of us, we've been to a significant number of them, the bigger ones and the smaller ones. So why don't we talk about gun shows?
Hmm.
Hey, that's a
And the
brilliant
future.
idea.
Or
And
the state of gun shows.
The state of the
Let's-
union.
let's
address
start
on
there.
gun shows. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Okay.
state of the general gun show in Canada,
In
as it's been
2024.
for the past 7 decades.
Well, you could
And
use the
talk
own
amongst
cool
yourselves.
stuff.
Go ahead, Mike.
In the 70s, you could own cool stuff, but I'll preface it with this. You just got your pal yesterday. You don't know anything about guns. You go to a gun show. You're probably not going to stay in the hobby that long. Unless there's something exactly perfect for what you're looking for.
Now, is that because of the experience that you get from that particular gun show? Is that where
It
you're
could
going with
be-
that?
It could be the experience, the available information, the
Quality of that
the
information.
inventory.
Yeah.
That's an easy place to start.
This is kind of funny, talking about this topic, where only 2 shows ago, I think we had the things you hear at a gun show. It was at least entertaining to us. It always is. Every time we set up a table at a gun show and have people come around and express their perceived expertise, which, I mean, it's great to have people involved and enthusiastic and stuff like that. But some of the things you hear. It's
I like
kinda,
the adjective that you inserted in there. Perceived.
which one was that?
Perceived.
Well, it's really all of us have, isn't it? Is a perceived expertise on whatever subject matter we're discussing.
Yes, but some of our perceptions are correct.
Mhm.
Some of our
Ah,
perceptions are
well.
from 1964.
That's right.
Mhm. Very true. Very
Yeah.
Some
I'm
of
not
them are
gonna-
from when Ronald Reagan was still president,
Oh, that's the 80s. That's horrible.
or Trudeau Senior.
Also the
Oh,
80s,
God.
horrible.
Mhm.
Well, late 70s, whatever. So okay, so we're dancing around the idea here. Like, are we concerned about the current state of gun shows in Canada? Then, like,
I would argue if we stay on the same arc and there's not change, they're going to die off,
yeah.
along with most of the people that
I
set up tables.
Now, when you say the same
Yeah.
arc, what do you mean?
Like if we continue on our current trajectory and don't either get more modern stuff at shows, new vendors at shows, getting younger people into it, it's going to die off.
Hmm.
From my view, that's what's
I
gonna
actually
happen.
don't disagree with you on that. I think that just like anything, you got to be able to keep up with the times. And new gun owners, well, frankly, like the oldest one of us here is like 86, and his camera is frozen. I think he lost us. But even Rooster is not in his at 51. I think he is now, or 52, whatever it is. He's not really interested in all old antiques all the time either.
Mhm.
And antiques can be very cool. Like at the Easter Arms Show, I mean, the Alberta CFO Terry had several like antique guns from Japan, and she had like 3 different Thompsons on display, and a whole bunch of stuff. So she actually had a C96 broom handle Mauser pistol that was made in China.
A Chinese contract.
Yeah, and in the 1950s. And if you when you looked at the Mauser logo written on the grip, they inverted the M. It said Wowser instead of Mauser. So like, there's cool shit that's old. There's no question. But when you're walking through table after table after table of Enfield 303, SKS, and
Cooey.
Cooey, and what am I? The other one I'm thinking of, the garbage rods, the Russian garbage rods,
Mosin.
Mosins.
Mosins. There's only so much of that can keep your interest,
And old optics.
and that I don't understand. The lines and lines of Tasco optics from the freaking 60s and 70s. I don't get that. Who even wants to use those?
I mean, there are people who will do clone rifle builds, but no one is cloning a Savage 99 with a Bushnell scope from 1972 on it. There might be one guy. There's much more market than there is demand.
Well, and if you think if you want an inexpensive optic, like how cheap is a Vortex Crossfire nowadays?
Not even that. Go to Amazon. You can find one for like $20. It's probably not going to hold zero, but
Yeah, if you want Chinesium for sure, yeah.
I would
English
recommend.
optics.
I'd recommend going with an Apex optic, but
Well, so would all 3 of us, including Kurt, who appears to be back, but isn't back yet.
Nope.
I added him and then he unadded.
However, if your budget is lower, there are many options in that tier.
there's something for
Yeah.
everyone at this point. There's no reason
Yeah.
not to.
And not only something, but a competitive something.
Yeah.
So
Well, and this is so Chris is saying, Chris Hoyan is saying, in Regina the gun show has been the same vendors with the same inventory for 10 plus years, and that's I think what concerns me the most. Not that there are people displaying antiques. Absolutely, I have absolutely no problem with that.
Right.
My problem is that they have been the exact same for 10 plus years, and young people, and when I say young people, I mean like later Gen Xers, even like anybody born after, call it 1975. Well, what year were you born, Kurt? You were born in like 73,
Two.
72. So let's say anyone born after 1971, just to be inclusive of everyone in this conversation. They want to see new and exciting. They want to see different stuff. They don't want to see the same things over and over again.
I'll put it out there because it's kind of one of those things where it's just like going to a store where you see dusty inventory. That's the stuff that doesn't sell. And that's the stuff that when you come back to the store year after year, it's still there. The stuff that does sell, you're not going to see because there's going to be one on the shelf or it's going to be sold out. So it's kind of a remnants bias. And that's what they keep bringing. Because it's like, well, we have it. Maybe one day it'll get sold.
Yeah.
So whether those vendors have the skills or desire to cycle the inventory, that's a different story. Because if that's what they like, why are they going to cycle their inventory if that's their niche?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a point, but I mean, that's a hell of a niche. Like, I don't know if is niche even the right word? Is there a stronger word than niche?
No, it's a pretty narrow and small specific word.
Yeah, but I'm looking for something narrower and more specific.
Let's say pigeonhole.
It's their pigeonhole.
Yeah.
It's so, contrast that. 2 years ago, we were at the Calgary show. We had a booth. We were doing the giveaway for the EM rifle build with the Apex rival on it,
which I didn't win.
Well, you know what?
There's one thing out of the last 100 that you didn't. You
it's a preemptive. So anyway, we were there. EM Precision was there. Apex was there, and Sterling Arms was there. Sterling Arms International, and man, what was the name of the? Is it Black Box? Was it Black Box there? Black Box Customs. And that year, I think Mark Scopes was there as well. And there may have been one or two other what you could consider modern companies there.
Insight Arms was there. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, Insight was there. Yep. And I remember that year, like the Apex booth and the EM booth were just massive, busy the entire time.
Yes.
It was just people were glued to those booths, and I remember talking with JR from Sterling after the show, and I was like, "How did it go for you guys?" Like, well, we sold out all of the rifles that we brought to sell. It was when when the Sterling R18 was new. They brought a number of them, thinking, "Oh, well, maybe we'll sell a couple." They absolutely sold out. And in fact, I seem to remember they may have even sold out on day one and then brought more on day two. But don't quote me on that. But
it sounds familiar, honestly, Chris. Yeah.
By the way, this is Joel Anthony rubbing it in your face, Mike, for who won the EM rifle.
Tip of the hat to them.
Tip of the hat to you, sir.
And I would like to take that opportunity to mention, Joel, we've never seen any videos or photos of you shooting that rifle. We've seen videos or photos of the rifle with your kids.
We know the rifle is real, but the winner might be Snuffleupagus.
That's right. Well, we've seen the winner's children, or was it your grandchildren? He sent us photos of his kids.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah.
We've
seen his upholstery, but that's it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, so you've already answered this for Patton asking the question. And by the way, that is a wonderfully black beard in that photo, isn't it?
I don't believe it's his. Can't be.
You guys even see it?
That is a handsome man. That precludes his involvement.
I'm going to call that a clever use of lighting.
Vanya wants to call into the show.
You know what? Okay, so first of all...
Kurt, just a sec. Just before you say that, send Vanya a link. He wants to say something. And, if you sponsor the show, you get to come on with no notice. So send him a link and he can come on.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, and just like, let
now,
Vanya in.
so there's a whole protest. Do we talk about Fight Club though? I don't think we talk about Fight Club.
What's rule
No.
number one?
Yeah, just
That's
message
right.
that. Yeah, just tell them that we don't talk about Fight Club.
Mhm.
Okay, so the question Patton is asking while we're sending that link to Vanya, a question to be asked is, what should the purpose of a gun show be? So, what do you guys think it should be?
To show guns.
I'll
Have you ever heard that when describing a definition, do not use the words that you're defining in that definition?
I'll
Work
go
with my
with
brother in log splitter.
To display firearms.
I'll go with a few here. One, to exhibit, and two, to engage.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
So I think those are the two keys. Obviously, physically, it's just you have to be there, see the stuff in person. Because like we all have been there. We looked at a rifle online or something, and we're like, oh, that's cool, and we picked it up, and whether we're confirmed or not, and we feel it, like, oh, this is not actually ergonomic. It feels kind of cheap, or the opposite. This looks great. I'll totally, if I'm not buying it from this vendor, I'll buy it for them. And then to engage is, I think, the more critical part. Like Mike and I did at the Lloyd Gun Show, is we promoted our shooting sport, which is PRS, and really talked to people in the community, made connections. And I think that second part is where it kind of needs to go. The first part, the exhibit, I think we're really good at in a niche, but the engage.
In a pigeonhole.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I agree with you with the engage part. It's what I like the most about the bigger shows in North America, like SHOT Show and we'll get an echo from you, Vanya. Like SHOT Show and TACOM is the engagement aspect of it. It's the talking to people. It's seeing what's new. It's handling guns and being able to, like, is this a cool new thing or is this not a cool new thing? And it's not like you say. Also, it's not just the guns. It's about within the industry. It's like when at SHOT Show last year, we spent, what was it, Kurt? Like an hour and a half at the Lapua booth, just listening to Brian
Oh, yeah.
Litz and what the heck was his name?
Emil Proslik.
Emil Proslik talk
Right.
about long distance shooting.
Yep.
And
Those are guys that are passionate
ballistics.
about shooting sports for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I've made jokes for several years now, especially since we started attending gun shows that, participating, let's say, having a table there and engaging with people. I make jokes that, man, do you see all the lifeless eyes around here? And what I meant by that, or what I always mean by that every time I say it, is some of the vendors that travel around to all of these shows, it's like the life has been drained from them. This is just what we've done for the past 20 years. We continue to do it because, we've done this for the last 20 years. They don't have a lot of them really don't have a lot of enthusiasm for engaging with people. Chris, you and I call it like we accost people all the time. People who are interested in what we have on display and our podcast and all that kind of stuff. And we chide a lot and joke around a lot. But you know what? I think a lot of people come away from our booth or our table with some actual knowledge, or at least things to think about, whether it's their body odor or actual shooting.
Well, and to that end, that's exactly what we've tried to do whenever we've had a booth. Last year at the Saskatoon show, we brought the Mantis X10,
Right.
and we're letting people dry fire with an X10. This year, we didn't have any of that sort of stuff, but we had the 33XC, which gets people's attention, and
Yes, sir.
get a pathway into talking about stuff like that. And you can still sell things if that's what the show allows for. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we were selling storied knives, but we didn't have a booth set up with a whole bunch of old Enfields and Nagants to bring people over to our booth to pitch them in the story knives. And by the way,
Yeah.
there was a table directly across from us that was selling a bunch of like garbage, like Chinese wish knives, and I didn't see them sell a single one.
Great.
And we sold several.
Yeah, we did.
And I think it's just the only difference is people were engaged at our booth.
Yeah.
Vanya, how you doing, man?
Vanya, I'd like to hear your personal take on things. You have a lot of experience with gun shows and that.
Well, it's funny that you guys were having this episode because literally Carly and I just spent 5.5 hours in the car on the way back from Montana. We literally got home like an hour ago, and then we were talking about this very topic for 5.5 hours.
Nice.
We had no idea that you guys would even have this show on with the topic.
Neither did we.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Great minds
We're
think
not going to
alike.
lie. This was a Friday afternoon topic decision.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So we look at it from a brand perspective, right? To go, okay, as a company, as a manufacturer of products, what is the most value for us in a show? Yeah, our kids love it.
Grandpa Kurt.
Yeah. They like one of the things is like we don't. I mean, we have so many resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a consideration. There's only so many gun shows that we want to go to in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So which ones are going to be the highest value propositions for us? So we can look at it from that perspective as a brand, as an option. People in the PRS space have heard of us for the most part, I would imagine by now. People in the hunting space, maybe not so much. The general shooting population in Canada maybe is not aware of us. So we go, okay, where can we get the most amount of eyeballs in front of our brand and get people to check out our product and look at it and evaluate it? Is it something they're worthwhile for them to investigate further? And then you look at things like, the Toronto Sportsman Show that we were just at, like a ludicrous amount of people walked through that show that day on the Friday and Saturday. Like ridiculous. They were turning people away at the booth, right? And what else were they doing? There was also the Calgary show was our home show for the longest amount of time, right? And we didn't get in this year for various reasons, and
you
that
weren't
was
the only ones.
a bit of a sore point for us because it's it's a Calgary Gun Show. It was the only show in town, and it's our home show, so it is what it is. But I mean, the trend that we've been seeing from the Canadian Gun Show perspective is that they're mostly for, like you said, those Lee Enfields, Mosins, maybe an odd SKS, but really everything from the, hey, is this your service rifle from 1945 guy? And are you selling it for $3,000? Like that's kind of the perspective that we look at it. Like, it's a lot of the old grizzled guys, a lot of collectors, which is fine. Everybody, each part of the industry, each part of the shooting segment has their space, and we should all be working together to kind of expand the whole pie, right? But like you said,
There's a place for everyone.
There's nothing modern, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think what you said there is just it. That there's nothing wrong with having people like that at a gun show.
Yeah, 100%.
But Jesus, do we need 400 booths of it?
Yeah, so then you kind of go, okay, well, like I was on, like even last year, I was in a hunt for a nice lever action. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could pick up a sweet deal on a lever. I've been looking for one for years, and that's the one thing that I'm missing from my collection that I would love to have. And something of 30-30 or 45-70, that'd be cool. And I mean, either they didn't exist at the show or they were, $4,000 or $5,000. I'm like, I'm not spending that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the other thing. What is the deal with these prices at gun shows? I don't get it, and I don't understand why people still buy things there.
You know what? I heard something from two guys in particular at the Saskatoon Gun Show. Now, how much weight you want to put on this, I don't know. But these two guys were saying, the deal, the
Part of the deal.
pretty much has been lost. Nobody wants to barter anymore. And I think a lot of the people that have been traveling around to gun shows have been doing it long enough that it used to be a thing. There was a barter thing, like an understanding that we would put our prices here, and with let's say a bottom line in mind, and we expect someone to come along and haggle. People are saying that doesn't exist anymore. they'll just see the price and walk on by. Yet these vendors are still clinging to this old, I guess, notion that somebody's going to come by and haggle.
Well, I mean, there is the Barnum and Bailey principle at play there, for sure. But I
Mhm.
mean, is that what we really want to build industry shows off of? Is a sucker being born every minute? You know, like that doesn't seem
Right.
like
It
a
pushes a lot of
sustainable
people away.
idea.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Well, yeah, when I see that price tag, I just go, well, I'm not going to lowball you to insult you, right? You came all this way, you put out all this money to be here, and I'm just going to say, oh, for this $4,000 rifle, I'll give you $1,500. Like, that'd be weird, right? Just like
Yeah.
somebody coming up to our booth saying, you want this $2,500 rifle scope, I'll give you $50 for it, right? Like from the other
Rock
side of
on.
it, I get it, right? Like, I don't want
Mhm.
to, as a
Yeah.
consumer, you don't want to do that or insult the guy too, right? So, I
Mhm.
guess the question is, what do we want the show to be? Like, well, what's missing right now that doesn't exist in Canada? Because I know there's a couple of shows in the U.S., and I mean, the U.S. is its own beast and it's a different market altogether. But
Yeah.
there are a couple of shows that we could model something after that would be freaking phenomenal. And I think the main goal of any show in Canada should be to expand the shooting community, to grow it. It shouldn't be
Agreed.
to just cater to the existing guys who are already you're preaching to the choir. But how do we grow it in a way that you can attract people who may not be shooters, who may not be hunters, and how do you interest them into even just pique their interest into the whole sport shooting aspect of it or hunting, right?
Mhm.
Well,
And
one thing that I've been thinking about recently is that, and you, okay, through the years, through the decades, whatever, shooting sports have grown and not necessarily faded, but let's say leveled off. Um, for the last decade, what has really grown shooting sports other than the 6.5 Creedmoor for you guys out there?
You mean like brought in new shooters?
New shooters, a renewed interest in the shooting sports. Now we're talking about Canada,
2 words.
so
Mhm.
John
let's have it.
Wick.
Well, there's no small contribution
Mhm.
there, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly,
I'll give you two more words.
yeah.
COVID-19.
Well, yeah, okay.
That's
Valid.
it.
Actually, yes, very
Mhm.
much. Yeah. I there were multiple people in my circle that are not gun owners that were publicly asking about guns and how they could get one within the first year of COVID-19.
That's
But also on the flip side, apart from the personal security aspect of it and protecting their stash during the insanity of 2020,
yeah.
but it was also, I think, the largest surge in precision rifle sports, period,
That's
in
yes.
2020.
So innovation,
2022. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
innovation,
only thing that you're allowed to do.
availability,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
So Vanya, you were largely affected by that. You used to be kind of an IPSC type, if not specifically IPSC,
Yep.
and
IPSC and
you've
pre-gun,
kind of
yeah.
migrated right. You've migrated away from that, or at least gained other interests, right? And what I see is such a huge growth in the precision rifle industry and the accessories and tooling, reloading, information even has grown exponentially over the last decade.
Yeah.
It was kind of always there for the last, let's say, 30 plus years, but the surge really came somewhere around a decade ago, let's say.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that was kind of like one of the waves that carried us forward as well as a company, as an upstart, right? Because we started in 2020 and it was like right before the pandemic started. We started the company, and one of the things that we saw was a massive growth in demand for that tier of optic at that price point, and
Yeah.
that's what kind of helped launch us, which was an interesting thing because most people are like, you're starting a company during COVID, you must be insane.
Mm.
And that was an interesting little inversion of logic that happened, right? It just kind of happened that way.
Yeah.
But the same thing is like what Carly mentioned about people who are hunting. A lot during the pandemic, it brought a lot of people into the hunting side of things who never would have been hunters. I mean, I was reading stories about people who are, your classic, I guess, granola eating stereotypes of the tree huggers and this with nature and all that stuff, and who took up hunting because securing their own food supply, making sure that it was organic, free range, like all that kind of stuff went into effect. And they're like, I never thought I'd be a hunter, but I'm never going back now. It's like kind of the comments that I've seen and heard online and stories and publications. And so that was a big push of it as well. So my question is, how do we get those people in that mainstream how do we get them interested in hunting, and how do we get them interested in sport shooting?
That's a great question.
I think are a good way to do that if you broaden the net, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So like the question is like, how much hunting content, for example, is there at the Calgary, Regina, or Saskatoon shows?
Zero.
Absolutely zero. What about you guys in Edmonton, Derek? Like,
I haven't been to the Edmonton show recently, but I will say in Lloyd and Vegreville, there actually was a few guiding outfits.
There was.
There was, so maybe not necessarily. Obviously, they're selling their services, but if we had something kind of in the middle where it's just an engagement of, hey, I'm an experienced hunter, ask me a question. Somebody like people like that would do wonders.
Yeah. Or if there was an opportunity to set up where you say, hey, I have a group of 50 hunters who are really good across Alberta, and if you want to take it up, I'll pair you up with one of them. These guys have been vetted, they're certified, they're good to go, like they're already licensed. And if you take your hunter safety course and you have your PAL, and you obviously there has to be some sort of vetting process there. But if there's an opportunity for people to take out, because when I started hunting, this is the strangest story. Carly used to call it dating for guys, where I literally went on Alberta Outdoorsman Forum, and there was a whole thread of like first-time hunters looking for a hunting partner. And I found two of my hunting buddies that I still hunt with today on that forum. And we just met up in Calgary for beers. Hey, let's go for wings and beers. We'll get to know each other before we walk around with guns in the bush, right? Yeah. So make sure we're all cool. And we hit it off right away, and we've been buddies since. So
when does your hunting buddy dating app come out?
Yeah, that needs to be a thing.
Does need to be. That's an untapped market right there.
Yeah.
I will say, at TACOM, one thing that they have been doing right is, and they're big enough to be able to do this, but they've been bringing in the celebrities. Like you see them at TACOM, and I know. We had Jerica Janot from Jerica in the Wild on last week. She went around to a couple of shows in the Alberta area. I think she was at the Sportsman Show, or was she? Or was it not at the Sportsman Show this year?
She was at the Sportsman Show,
She was at the Sportsman Show.
Yeah.
So, you've got people like that have hunting TV shows. And her whole thing that she's doing there is just talking about Jerica and the Wild in her new book. But that's... I think that's a huge untapped market for gun shows is the hunting thing, and something that I don't think it would be that difficult to tap into.
I could say as someone who's organized shows before, though, because I have a list of probably 200-300 people I'll invite to a show. Because you have to expand. Like this year, we had an airsoft vendor come to our show for the first time. We never had an airsoft vendor. They sold all their stuff out in the first day because they were new. People haven't seen it.
No question, yeah.
But if you're in regards to outfitters, if you can get someone from the States to come up here and pay $50,000-$60,000 for a hunt, do you really want to go to the local gun show and get guys that are going to pay $2,000 or $3,000 for the same thing?
Yeah, and I think outfitters are a kind of a hard sell for Albertans, especially if you can hunt as a resident, right? So there's not necessarily a way, but I think, I've seen some comments around like people giving up their spots when hunting and all that stuff. Well, you don't have to take the new person to your honey hole, right? That's fine. Just show them the ropes, show them how to hunt, show them what to look for, teach them how to track, like here's the direction that they're heading based on the prints, right, in the snow and all that stuff, like the basics. I'll tell you, like the biggest thing from a hunting perspective for me when I started out, it was so overwhelming. There were so many different things to know. Like, how do you even begin? Apart from the firearms themselves and taking your PAL and knowing what caliber to buy, whether it's going to be a 270 or 7mm or a 30-06 or a 308, guys can get bogged down in the details so easily, right? So I'm talking about from a hunting perspective, if there was a path, if you could have an exhibit hall of like hunting and outdoor gear and all the vendors like the Sitkas and the Kuyus of the world, and all those guys sell at shows. I know, I've been there, and they love that kind of stuff because they don't have storefronts necessarily like the Kuyus of the world and First Lights. Right. And then you start talking about like people who Obviously, there's a lot of ideas about different ways to do it, but you don't just focus on the hunting. You focus on the sports shooting, and you get every single league like IPSC and multi-gun and 3-gun and the clay guys and the shotgun sports and pistol sports and IPSC and PRS and rimfire PRS and NRL Hunter, and like try to get as broad of a range as get every single sport there and have people see what it's all about. You know, some guy might walk in who just likes to hike. But he's like, oh man, I can hike with a gun? Sick. Right? And it's like, oh, I can harvest my own meat. I never thought of it that way or never had much interest, but how do I start? And there's a booth where they can learn how to start. Or he's like, hey man, I already have my firearms license, but how do I get involved in sport shooting? I've been wondering about that for years, but all I see is these YouTube videos and I've never had an opportunity to talk to anybody who competed in it. Well, pick one of these 10 and that you're interested in, go talk to somebody for an hour and figure it out. And they'll invite you to the range and they'll show you what it's all about.
Yeah.
So are you leaning more toward sort of an industry showcase type event rather than a show and sale?
I think it
kind of the
both.
traditional show and sale. Yeah,
it can be both. I don't see why not.
They have to be mutually exclusive.
No, God no. I think what it needs to be is it needs to be big enough to the point where the major manufacturers across Canada, like the KDEX of the world that are in Quebec,
100%.
It needs to be big enough that the companies from the East and West Coast will and everywhere in between will want to come and either sell their stuff directly or just show off what they're making so that people understand. So if they don't have a direct to consumer model, they can just show their stuff off and there's going to be enough eyeballs on it that it's going to be worthwhile for them. And then also there can be a whole collector area, right? Where the guys that have like the Calgary Gun Show or whoever, the guys who are selling their stuff that they can't get rid of, there might be that one guy who comes by and buys it. Right. There can be a section for that. And then there can be a section for outdoors. There can be a section for just, adventure camping. Like how many of those treetop tents, the back, whatever the tree line tents, I've seen those at outdoor and hunting shows all the time, and they're amazing. They're so popular, and I'm sure they sell a bunch, right? So I think it can be a show for everything and everyone, all encompassing as much as possible. Because like I said before, I think you want to grow the tent, not shrink it, right?
A couple of interesting.
There's some good ideas coming out of the chat here.
There is, yeah. So from Chris, he says, I have scheduled seminars throughout the weekend, every second hour, from hunting, different sports shooting, gunsmithing, anything shooting related. That's something else that TACCOM does well. Off to the side, they have their what's it called? It's called what's the word I'm looking for, guys?
Like a stage?
Stage. Yeah. They have their stage.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they do. Every hour they have a presenter on. Some presenters draw more of a crowd than other presenters do, but that's the way that it goes, Another interesting comment was from Dave. He says a lot of bigger shows charge too much for the space to be practical for a lot of the guiding outfits, from what I've been told. I would ask the question, can you get two guiding outfits together? Can you get a guiding outfit together with another, related company and share a booth? When we were there at the Easter show, the Calgary show 2 years ago, we were there because we pitched in on EM's booth. And you guys did that year too. Didn't the three of us basically?
I think we ended up buying up that whole area and just splitting it between the three of us. The way that we kind of configured it. But I mean, and that's the way that you can do it always, right? It doesn't have to be like one brand per 10 by 10 space or however much you rent. Because cost is an issue. The problem is all those exhibit halls cost a lot of money to rent in the first place. So the price per square foot, I don't think they're making a ton of money on that from a resale perspective when they're selling it to the vendors. The issue is, cost is one part of it, but the other part of it is the, how do you make it all encompassing, right? And I think you can't call it a gun show, honestly. I think you might need to call it like something akin to what they do in the States, which is it's like a great Canadian outdoor show. If you call it that would kill.
Absolutely. And it gives you that diversity as well. It also, I think, would help overcome some of the stigmas of a gun show. I think a lot of the public and possibly even venues, I would imagine, that as soon as you say, "Oh, we're a gun show," they think about the mainstream media, the media, the mainstream 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 reports that they've seen about, oh, this is where the people buy ghost guns, isn't it? This is where people buy guns and trade them and sell them illegally, isn't it? You know, an outdoorsman show is completely different. How much of TACCOM is ShamWows and Chinesium swords?
I can say a lot because
Best
when we were
comment
there,
of
we
the
were
night.
surrounded by them. But yeah,
Well, and I'll say this also, like you're always going to see a quality difference. You know, shows like SHOT Show have the benefit of like, well, you know, we've got our smaller area for small people, and we've got our big area, the main floor, you know, and then we've got our second hall, and you know, all this sort of stuff that a lot of other places don't have the benefit of. You're always going to see the differences in quality, but that can also be self-correcting, because if somebody gets a booth and they're trying to sell their Chinesium swords and it does nothing for them because they're selling garbage
Right.
that anybody can order on Amazon or Wish,
Right.
then they're not going to pay the booth fee every year.
yeah. And I think one big distinction that we have to make is too that there are things that are industry only shows and things that are consumer facing, right? So when we say consumer facing, it's like just general public can attend, right? So yeah, so it's like SHOT Show from a scale and like quality of exhibit perspective, I think is what we're going for. Obviously not to the scale that SHOT Show is because it's insane.
Yeah.
But
That's
but
Vegas.
from a like a layout and like look and feel, I think that's what we want to go for. Like quality of exhibitors, yes. I think it needs to be open to the public. And like I said, obviously before, it was like all encompassing. You need to invite as many people in as possible and broaden that tent. That's the only way that we're ever going to grow the community. But yeah, there's so many good ideas for so many different things that can happen there. I think it's exciting that we're talking about this, and there's obviously everybody involved is very, very excited about it, which is great. I think we need to make it awesome in every single way possible. And like JR's idea of bringing in celebrity chefs to demonstrate things, whether it's to, you know, butchering skills or how to cook venison to make it taste, you know, people who have never actually eaten deer before to have it maybe taste a bit more palatable or better or whatever. And here's some tips and tricks, right? So
yeah. You know how many hunters are.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
So, I've organized the show. I've reiterated that, but if you don't have the people that want to put the show on, we're gonna get the same kind of shows that we always get. And you're always going to have this, if the same people are running it, because when you volunteer, you'll find that it's usually the same 8 people that do everything. No matter where you are, we have 1,200 people that could help. There's 8 of us that are going to show up.
Yeah.
And I see that as a huge hurdle right now. The other thing in regards to TACCOM is it's awesome to have like a manufacturer there, because I would argue there's an information gap in the Canadian community that's not present in the US, and we need to bridge that information gap because a lot of our information is outdated.
Yeah. And I think that's the one difference is so everybody talks about TACCOM as being and like almost attempting to be SHOT Show North to a certain degree, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good aim to have from I guess from the level of manufacturers that show up and having all the brand reps there and being able to ask them questions. And I mean, we field a lot of questions about our stuff at shows like that, which is great because you want to be able to inform the people from a brand perspective and inform them on your product and hey, what makes yours different than XYZ. I was going to say that the worst thing about TACCOM is the timing. The TACCOM, the cost and all that stuff, it's in line with all the other shows. It's not super expensive to exhibit at it. That's not my concern. It's the timing. Because for us as Apex, it falls in at the literal worst possible time that could be. And we've communicated that to the show organizers a couple of times, and I don't think they really believe us. The number of people who are busy with, hunting season starting in end of August in Alberta for bow. And bow season fully opens up in September. In some parts of the province, rifle season opens up for elk in early.
Waterfowls open September 1st.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then you have finales for shooting leagues all in September pretty much. So it's like the literal worst possible time from a sports shooter and hunter perspective to have a show like that. So we've tried to communicate that. We said, hey guys, could you thought about having it a different time of year? Because we will definitely be back if that was the case. and I don't know if it's gone over very well, but I mean, they're locked into that September timeframe now, just like with all the other show cycles. And so I don't know how possible it is to move it, but that's just been one of my observations and some of our feedback to that guy, that, you know, we would love to see it because, yeah, I'm King of 2 Mile, 100%. And that's
my boy.
with that a bunch of times, right? Especially for you, right?
So, is it
So
fair to say-
what's the ideal date, say, for a gun show, you think? Western Canada, let's say.
For Western Canada, I think it'll have to be something in that March, April timeframe. Because when you start thinking about it from an industry perspective, you have SHOT Show in January, you have the big international show in Germany in end of February, early March. And then after that, you don't have anything until probably, you know, June, July. So, you know, then shooting season starts generally in April sometime for a lot of our leagues. So April, like late April, is mostly out of commission for getting, you know, attracting the core audience that you want to attract, plus not staffing it and having time to go, and there's too many competing issues, right? So,
right.
Yeah, that's kind of thing. And then the NRA show is in May long weekend as well. So any of the companies that might be Canadian companies that are maybe going down for that, or people who are traveling for that show anyway. So that's is kind of out of commission for that. So yeah, then you start getting into summer and kids are out of school and summer holidays and all that kind of stuff. So summer's not optimal for that reason. But yeah, and I think if we could find a way to have it so that it doesn't collide with the existing Easter show, that would be great. Or have a way to integrate both into the same weekend without kind of bleeding away support from one another. That would be ideal. But there's somewhere in that, you know, probably 2 to 3 week time frame would be nice.
So we've established kind of what we don't like about the average gun show. Let's just put it that way. And we've kind of established what we would like to see from the average gun show. So I guess the question is like TACOM, like you said, has the timing issue, but they really have kind of hit that mark. And they've got people coming all the way from the west, all the way out to the east, which is no small feat in this country. To attend that show, specifically because it is a more modern show. So I guess the question is this town big enough? You know, an Eastern show and a Western show. I would probably wager especially if you've got TACOM in the fall and you've got a Western show in the spring, or, you know, I guess technically it would be spring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys, what do you guys think about that?
If you build it, they will come.
I think the balance is there.
I think the sheer volume of people that walk through that Calgary show, despite the fact that it's the same year after year after year after year, is testament. I think people are thirsty.
Yes.
They just need something other than, you know, old canteen water.
Yeah.
Like, we cannot be the only people complaining about the typical gun shows that we've seen across 20 years.
No, and it's kind of interesting when you look at it. Like I made a post that I kind of reposted the company post about us not being at our local Calgary gun show this year because we couldn't get in. And then the kind of the sheer volume of comments and text messages that we received in that day overwhelmed us. It overwhelmed my inbox, and then out of that, that group got started about creating a new Calgary gun show all within like hours. It was insane to watch. So yeah, I think there's definitely an appetite, and I think the thirst is definitely real for something better. And yeah, I don't know. I think.
Sorry, I didn't tell Vanya not to talk about Fight Club.
Oh, you didn't?
Email. I didn't, sorry.
Well, that train is.
Do we want to talk about Fight Club?
It's too late. We're already talking about Fight. We've been talking about Fight Club for the last 20 minutes.
I know.
It's okay. Carry on.
And everybody's just like,
no, everybody's just shutting up about it.
Well, I guess I'll put a spin on it. How about that?
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on the Thursday before the Calgary Gun Show, we definitely there was a group that was started and we were invited into it. It wasn't started by us, but we were invited into it to participate and provide input and see if we'd help with organizing something new. And I think it was just a really good opportunity for a lot of the people who are either in the industry or in the competitive shooting space, or people who put on gun shows in the past, were kind of invited in and say, hey, what do we want this thing to look like? And that's really the same conversation that we're having here right now, is really just what that is.
Yeah.
It's not really meant to do anything other than conceptually, what do we think this would look like? Where would we want to put it on? What's the timing? What is the show going to be? And that kind of stuff. So really everything that I've said here tonight is the same stuff that I've said inside that group, or either myself or Carly anyway. So it's just been, we've had these ideas for the last 2 or 3 years. And so this was a really good outlet for us to kind of like, vomit our way, all that information out of us as a cleansing act, and be like, here, somebody do this.
Well, it's I don't think there's any question that there's an appetite for that sort of thing. I think that, in a perfect world, the Easter Arms Show would be like, hey, yeah, no, let's modernize this sucker. But there hasn't and I'm not an industry insider by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm just talking as a consumer here and as a person who was there as a vendor once, and just the way that we've been treated on that side of things. There just doesn't seem to be much of an appetite to cater to that demographic. And I think that that's fine. We can be pissy about it, or we can recognize their position and their point of view. And then once you recognize their position and their point of view, you just have a decision to make. Do you want to be involved in doing something, or do you not?
Yeah,
right. It's really all you're talking about.
Not only that, but if say this proposed show takes off, then maybe that sets an example for all the other shows too. Right. They notice, well, we're in decline. What are they doing differently that we're not doing? Because for a lot of the smaller gun, like for our fishing game, the gun show is one of our biggest fundraisers that we put on. So we have to work with the times, and we've had in our committee times like, well, should they be at the show? Because okay, airsoft, they're not really firearm related, but I know a lot of APSIC guys that love to use them for dry fire. I'm like, have them at the show. But then when you get into somebody's like selling blinds or something next to someone who's selling nice optics, it kind of cheapens the message of the show, and you don't want that.
Yeah,
it's kind of ironic.
It's such a hard thing, right? Because you kind of, as a show organizer, you have to sell the space too, because to even like remotely break even. And you're like, okay, well, do I allow the ShamWow or the Chinese, knives or swords or whatever, right? It's like, is that
like how do you justify? Like, yeah, you could technically clean your firearm with a ShamWow. Like, is it the best way to do it? Like someone selling spices, like, okay, I hunt. I would like to season meat from every now and then.
Yeah,
that's perfectly fine to have at the show.
It's complimentary, right?
Yeah, like you're hunting, but if you're going to go into that harder area, do you want to know about some tents that maybe don't weigh as much that you're not carrying?
Yep. 100%. There's a massive opportunity there for complementary brands and products, right? And all sorts. I can think of like a dozen or two right off the top of my head of the stuff that I would like to see there, from the stuff that I've taken into the backcountry hunting on a 3-day trip and carrying stuff on my back only, right? As I walk in, from lightweight tents to dry, freeze dried meals to water filtration, all this kind of stuff, right? There's so many different ways that you can attack it, and there's a lot of opportunity there for something because this stuff doesn't really exist in Canada. I know they've tried to do something in BC from what I was told a couple of years ago. I don't know how much it's taken off or not, but
David made a Hunt Mania. Is anyone familiar with Hunt Mania?
No, I saw that. I'm not sure what the heck that.
Yeah, Dave Collins had made that comment a while ago. He said Hunt Mania didn't last, but it was probably run wrong. I don't know what Hunt Mania was.
I'm familiar with it. That someone was trying to get shows organized. They weren't super well attended from the few that I went to, but I don't know if that was an organization thing or if you can't get the vendors to show up because there's already another show going on in the same time.
Oh.
Because I will say for our gun show, it's basically the same weekend as SHOT Show. or if
Oh,
it's right on the tail end of SHOT Show or right at the beginning of SHOT Show. I'm like, I understand that we've always had it at the same time, but we are actually going to lose people if newer vendors want to come. Like, oh, but I'm going to SHOT Show. It's I get off the plane and have to drive 3 hours to get to your show. You're not going to get the people.
Yeah.
No.
Or if you get them, the quality is going to be lower because they're jet lagged, and they threw in a couple Rubbermaids of stuff, and they,
No
you know,
Tupperware.
they're making it there to be there, but not really there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, there definitely is a bit of a hangover after SHOT Show. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're Canadian or you're American. I mean, that is the show in North America to go to, and even whether it's been smaller and slower for the last 4 years or not is really irrelevant. It's still the biggest show in North America.
Yep.
And there's a definite lag. Hangover is what you said, right, Derek?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, jet lag, physically,
Yeah.
or hangover, mentally.
I could say we're out of commission for 7 to 10 days after SHOT Show, and we don't do very much drinking at all. Like as an exhibitor, we're wiped. Like because you're interacting with people, and you're on for like 16 to 18 hours a day. Like it's you don't turn it off when the show's done because you're going for events, you're going for meetings. Still, you're gonna go have an event, you're gonna go dinner, and then like by the time you get back, it's like midnight, and you're just tired, and then you have to get up and do it all over again, like 5 days in a row. So it's hard. And then with the travel and everything else, and I mean, like I don't think I answered an email properly or coherently until Wednesday the following week, honestly. So it's exhausting, and then to have to think about going to another show right after, I'd be like, no, thank you.
Trade shows are no small deal for vendors with good booths. Like it's easy. We show up there, we throw a tablecloth down, and we put a couple of guns on it and some business cards, and nowadays
we make sure we have coffee, and that's about the most stressful part of it for us.
But I mean, I think of like the Odell booth at TACCOM. Like I helped them put that up 2 years ago. It is an adventure and a half putting that thing up. Like, for anybody who knows what I'm talking about, I mean, vendors who but those types of booths make shows too.
There are some gun show vendors that they do have it almost down to a science now. I've seen trailers back up. They have the old like Scholastic bookcase kind of deals. Yeah. Everything's in there. They roll it in, they fold them out, they fold them up, they go back in the trailer. And it is the slickest setup I've ever seen.
I imagine all the big companies do it that way these days. I would love to see TACCOM going up and being taken down one day. You guys were there, Vanya, for setup. Did you get to see like some of the big name companies in the main hall putting their booths up?
Oh yeah, it's insane. They have cranes, like the indoor cranes and the skyjacks and scissor lifts, and it's insane. Like just you have to actually be careful not to get run over while you're walking by, because sometimes you have to go from our hall to the front of like the main hall area to set up our new product display center stuff, because we usually get a spot in there. So there's a cutoff on the Monday. So Monday is like a massive setup finishing day, and I know there are booths that were still setting up on Monday at 11:59 p.m. because their stuff arrived late or something was missing, or their crates were delayed either at customs or through carriers, or it was this SHOT Show. I feel like it was a lot of last minute assembly. So there was a lot of stuff flying around all the time. And I feel like inside our booth space, our 400 square feet, we were safe. But if you stepped outside, you have to be really careful and like head on a swivel kind of thing.
It's like a construction site.
Yeah. And it's amazing, like the difference, 8 to 10 hours makes between that insanity, like at midnight on the Monday night and first thing when the show opens on Tuesday morning. It's like nothing ever happened. It's kind of magical, honestly.
Well, I don't know, guys. Have we solved the world's problems here? Does anyone else want to say anything about this?
I'm sure there's lots that can be said.
I think we got it covered. I'm just going to reiterate. I think we have 3 E's of the gun show: exhibit, engage, and expand. So I think that's our. We could throw that into the 4th E. So I think that's our guiding principles for improving
the mission statement.
Yeah.
We
I like
follow
it.
the 4E,
Hmm.
the 3E. I won't hijack your E's.
Not to be confused with 4-H.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, they're a little different.
Speaking of hijacking, I didn't mean to invite myself in. It just happens to be that we were literally talking with this thing for the last bunch
Oh,
of
this is great, Vanya.
Well, you
Yeah.
did mean to invite yourself in, but it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was meant to be as a joke, actually, to begin with.
The door
No
was
doubt.
unlocked, anyways.
Yeah.
So
Sponsors get a free pass. That's
Okay.
that's how it works. Okay, well, I don't know, guys. If we've talked about this to death at this point, I don't want to kick the horse too much longer. The poor thing. If we're all said and done, then I guess we're all said and done on this. Let's hope that people are paying attention.
Well, I think there are more conversations to be had around this. Like you said earlier, Chris, there's enough appetite for it around, I'm sure. One of the things I see as a big hurdle to ultimately go that way, a different type of show or an improved show, let's say, like what Mike was saying earlier, the trouble with getting these shows off the ground is involvement, the people helping run it. It cannot be 4 or 8 or whatever people. There's got to be a whole team at the very least organizing it, and I dare say also running it.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's going to be key to success.
Yeah.
For something like this, but I think we definitely need it. There's like I said earlier, that we cannot be the only guys complaining about this for the last 20 years. We've heard it from almost everyone. People want to see some change in this regard, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And well, hypothetically, if anyone were organizing this sort of thing and they wanted a show MC, I know a guy.
Yep.
You got a guy.
I got a guy.
So it's funny, one last thing I'll mention. Yeah, I am going. We're going to be at the NRA show in Houston in May. So I'm going to take a loop around that whole show and try to get a lay of the land, because I've heard that one is a really good consumer level show from that perspective. So that's going to be kind of a little bit of my scouting mission while I'm down there to figure out what they're doing. I'm going to talk to the organizers and some of the exhibitors. Like, what? Obviously, it's going to be massive. Sorry, Dallas, not Houston. Thank you. I don't even know what name. But yeah, that's going to be an opportunity to kind of take a look at that show from a consumer show perspective. The one that I'm kind of sad that I missed out on was the Great American Outdoor Show in Pennsylvania, and that one apparently is just huge. It's every I think February, and it's like 150,000 people go through it or something silly. And
massive hunting demographic over in that side of the country for sure.
Yeah. So that's something that we were invited to as an exhibitor, but we didn't get a chance to do it this year just because of the timing between all the shows. But I would have liked to at least gone and seen it. But so those two ones are, I think, templates for us to maybe at least attempt to replicate somewhat at a smaller scale. But I'll report back to the Fight Club.
And I'll be quiet now. Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up, guys. If you guys are still watching and you haven't given us a like or a thumbs up, or if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, come on, give it the program already. Don't make me say it. Don't make me beg. It's so pathetic when I beg. Otherwise, check out the show. Check out the show at facebook.com/BS podcast or on our website, bspodcast.ca. You can leave us a review on Facebook. I don't know if we don't have a Google business profile, so don't bother leaving us a Google review. You can't do it. If you like our content, leave a like on our Facebook page or on our Instagram page or on our YouTube page or whatever else. You can also email us if you'd like. It's info@bspodcast.ca. We love hearing feedback. We got feedback from somebody just the other day, a lone trucker listening to our show. We were a little bit behind getting some of our audio versions up, and he sent us an email. He said, "Hey guys, watch the show. What the hell? Quit being lazy dinks." So we did. We got our audio episodes out. So if we're being lazy dinks and you want to tell us, it's info@vspodcast.ca. And as usual, a massive thank you to all of our listeners and to all of our sponsors. Without you, we wouldn't have a show in the first place. We're talking about Shane and Steve, Miles, Carrie and Cappy, Duncan and Rob, Phil, Doug and Nisa, the man on the lower left of your screen right now, Vanya, and his wife in the chat. I don't know why she didn't come on with him, but she didn't. We only seem to be allowed to have one of you guys on at a time. Oscar and
House
JR.
rules.
House rules.
Yeah.
Thank you all an immeasurable amount. So last words, anybody?
No, you know what? If anybody out there has some suggestions, by all means, send them to us at the BS podcast, things where we live and read stuff and look at things. And yeah, we'll try and incorporate into Fight Club.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Great last words.
We're happy to pass on information to potential organizers of all things. We'll be the middleman. I'm your Huckleberry. All right. We'll see everybody next week.
Am I doing buttons? You do?
This right here has the ability with a 30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS. Ballistically Speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.